Welcome, everyone. Good to see a representation from a little bit all over the place. Some of you are, I don't know what your background and what you are producing, but what we're going to look at is membership marketing for your farm products. Interesting. Just this afternoon, I caught a little video put out by Curtis Stone, and he was interviewing Jean-Martin Fortier on his farm. And even though he's got years of experience, he still pointed out that, you know what, you can grow all kinds of stuff, but you've got to get your marketing down. If you don't, you can grow fruit, vegetables, animals, whatever you like, flowers, herbs, but if you don't sell them, then it's not going to work too well. So that's really what we're going to look at today. We're going to focus on the marketing aspect, and particularly membership marketing. So here's a few ways to sell what you grow. If you grow, many of you know about CSAs, community supported agriculture. Some of you may be selling things through a distributor, perhaps local grocery store. A lot of people think right away about farmers markets. There's roadside stands. You could sell to a wholesaler. You can do delivery, mail order, a food truck, the back of a truck, sell by the internet to institutions or door to door. There are lots of different ways you can sell. You could sell to restaurants, chefs, buying clubs. You could have a U-pick, or you can do a workshop and sell the produce afterwards through the workshop. Is there any other ways? Can I get a few comments? Josiah, maybe you can read them to me. Any other ways you could think of that you can sell what you grow?
Go ahead and type it in chat, guys, if you have something. I will read it off.
I'll give you a quick 30 seconds here to write down a few. Just to give you the previous one. That's what was, that's what
local clinic.
Okay. I presume you would have a farmer's market at that local clinic, or some kind of back of the truck setup.
Friends and coworkers.
Yep. So that's a direct to the eater.
What else you guys got? Let's see here. Coworkers to offset my gas money.
Any others?
Classified ads, Facebook classifieds.
Yeah.
See here, a close collaboration with local clinic who are cooking with your produce.
Yeah, cook with it and sell it as a directly ready to eat. Okay. Well, here's a list of a few, and I just divide it into the two main ways. So if you're selling it direct to the eater, and that's the retail version, or you can sell it in a wholesale version. So any of these, you can have the retail and the wholesale way of doing it. So farmer's market, yeah, or you can supply a farmer or several farmers at a farmer's market. You can have a kiosk or sell it to a distributor. A vending machine, you ever think of that one? That's an interesting one. Or you sell it to someone who does supply vending machines. Maybe you've seen a fruit in a vending machine, bananas or apples. That's a way. Door to door, yes. Supply a veggie CSA, your own CSA, mail order catalog, somebody mentioned, yeah. Or you supply a mail order catalog. So either you have your own or you sell it to someone who has theirs. A mail order website, U-pick, supply store, membership U-pick, which is what we'll focus on today. You could supply a cafeteria, a restaurant, and have an auction. There's an interesting way of selling. Most of you, if you've ever bought flowers, do you realize that most of the flowers all over the world are sold at an auction? So just a few of the ways. So let's just take a look at some of the the ones you don't usually think of. But this is in Europe. In France, they have raw milk vending machines. Now, that's stretching it for, but people will go with their container and fill up right there. But that's a way that you wouldn't normally think of, but that really, and it generates a lot of PR, a lot of publicity when you do something different. Here's our little roadside stand. It's very simple. You see the bike wheels at the bottom of the picture. And our little stand is just on a trike. You ever see these delivery trikes? Well, we just mounted a few shelves on top of our delivery trike, and we just wheel that out to the side of the road. It's completely self-serve. We do not man the booth in any way. There's a can. You just don't see it in there. We have a can in there, and it's a little sign, pay here, and that's all there is. So it's a very low maintenance system. We just go at the end of the day, pick up the cash, bring back with the cart, and that's it. So it could be something very simple or something quite elaborate for a farm stand. So why focus on the retail side? And really that is what I want to focus on. Well, one, because it is direct to the eater. You are selling to the person who will be eating it. And as my mentor in this area said, you are a price maker instead of a price taker. Now, if you just try to sell something to someone who will then sell it, they will be giving you a price. You will take the price they give you. Much nicer if you can simply make the price you like, and you may need to adjust it. You may have it too high, or you may have it too low, really. But you make the price you want. The nice thing about it is you own the customer, not in a bad way. It's really in a great way, owning the customer. So it's a great way because you then deal with the communication in that. People trust farmers. Did you know there was a little survey that the two most trusted professions are farmers and firemen? They have over 90% trust from the public. So that is an enviable position. There's nobody who sells anything that is more trusted than farmers. If you look at politicians and used car salesmen, they are down below 10% in how much people trust them. And I guess in the US today, there's a lot of that going on where you'll be having to put your trust in a politician. So why focus on U-pick? Well, one of the main reasons is that on average, 40% of the cost of production for most fruit is harvesting and packaging. Now, you may not think of it, but if you buy fruit in a little container, that packaging really adds up. If we sell apples, for example, and if we sold them to a distributor, the going price for conventional apples, we wouldn't sell through conventional, but the going price in our area for conventional apples is about $10 to $11 a box, which is a bushel box size. That box cost $1.25. So we're talking about 10% of the cost, or 12% of the cost of that box is actually just a box. You haven't even put the time in to assemble that box. You haven't put the fruit in and all that. So that's a huge piece. The other part of focusing on U-pick is you let the members do the work of harvesting. So think of that. If you've ever picked something, you know that it can be work. The first times it's fun, it's exciting, but after you've picked a few thousand pounds of it, some of that bloom kind of wears off and you go, this can be quite a work. So if you let the people do the work, that's great. Here's my mentor, Booker T. Whatley. I never met the man, unfortunately. He's since passed away, but he came up with this idea of membership marketing. In '87, he published this little book, How to Make $100,000 Farming 25 Acres. That's '87, so the prices are in that era. But it was a fantastic book. I happened to be in graduate school. I saw it on the bookshelf, and I devoured it. And I thought, this guy is brilliant. I mean, this is really a great way to sell something if you're farming. And that was really the basis, and it really got the wheels turning in how to run a farm. So his we'll just look at a little bit about what he outlines in that book. And he had 4 key parts. First, you want to create a biodiverse, pick your own small farm. So that's the first one. Produce 10 crops and sell to your CMC, which he calls the Clientele Membership Club. You market to that club for 40% of their supermarket price, and you get a profit. Those are the 4 key parts to it. And then he goes into his 10 commandments. And it's really quite interesting how he points these out, but they're really important. So 1, provide year-round daily cash flow. I would have to say that works better in he was from the South, and that would work better in a Southern situation, where us in the North, for example, now we're completely closed down from mid-November right down to mid-March or end of March. We're really closed. There's nothing for sale. There's nothing really going on at the farm because we're basically snowed in. But in many areas, you can do a yearly and have a daily cash flow. Second one, be a pick your own operation. Have a CMC or a guaranteed market. And that is the key. It's a guaranteed market. The 4th, provide year-round full-time employment. The 5th, be located on a hard surfaced road. And this is really one of the most important criteria in his 10. Be located on that hard surface road, not a gravel road, less than 40 miles from 50,000 people or more. Have it on well-drained soil and an excellent source of water. So I had the advantage before we started looking for a farm, I had a criteria list, and this was one of my top criteria. And so we did find a place that had well-drained soil, excellent source of water. You see that's the big lake right next to us that we have perpetual rights to the water, and we can draw as much of it as we want. The only thing is, we're not in the 40-mile range. When we started looking, we realized, wow, 40 miles from Montreal, which is pretty well 1.5 million people, you're buying land that is bought for recreational purposes. A lot of people want to have a house in the country, and so farmland in that radius is not priced on the value of the farmland. It's priced outside of farm use. So we're kind of got that, but really that is the one we failed on that is the most important. The 6th, produced only what thy client demand and nothing else. That's easier said than done, but it is so important and simple to do if you just ask and then you produce that. Shun the middlemen and middlewomen like the plague, for they are curse upon thee. And that was really makes sense. That means anything that is non-retail, forget it. Don't even go there. So shun those middle people, because they are really the ones that take the biggest cut of your food dollars. Consist of compatible complementary crop components that earn a minimum of $3,000 per acre annually. That's in 1987. So today's value would be around $6,500. So that wipes out quite a few things. So you really have to think, can I make that amount on average? So if you say, well, this one will only be 5, well, you better have one that'll be around 8 then to offset it. But it's nice to run everything through that sieve. Be covered with liability insurance, minimum 250, ideally $1 million. And the last one, be weatherproof, at least as far as possible, with both drip and sprinkler irrigation. And I would even add frost protection. That's just what we added if you're in an area that is subject to frost. So we lost everything in 2012, and that was a good motivator to get into a frost protection system. So it's things to consider. So here's the list. And what we did was we just looked through the list and say, okay, which ones do we check off? Which ones are we reaching or not reaching, or do we have? And it's a great starting point to consider how you're going to do it and what you're going to do. Give you a brief little history on how we sold. We started with a club, and We mailed a few hundred newsletters, and I say mailed because we started when there was no email yet. It was before the internet really got going. And so we actually did physical mailing. We mailed a few hundred newsletters. We got 10% response, which is excellent. And we got 30 members. We did that for 3 years, and then we had one crop failure. So people found that, yeah, it kind of lost value, you know, to say, well, pay a membership, and then we really didn't have a crop for them. So the other thing was members came mostly from an hour away from Montreal, which was a lot. So to start, we had just apples and fowl. That's all we had. This is our first pastured poultry pen. And it's just a lesson for those who think, oh, you know what, that's not the best setup I have yet. Look, just get started. It really is important to just get started. This is the worst pen you could try to use, but it showed that we could raise really great birds. They ate a hell of a lot of apples in the apple rows, because that's all we had at that time was an apple orchard. And you know what? Even though it was a terrible pen and it wasn't worth repeating with that size and so on, it was very convincing to know that just start, try it out, and it worked well enough that we could continue, and we refined it. We're on our 7th version of our pens now, and really happy with them. We're in the warmest zone in Quebec. So if you looked at the bottom, just south of the colored area is New York State. So we're only a few minutes north of New York State, in what's considered one of the best agricultural areas in the province. Funny thing is, if you look at where that star is, which is where our farm is, and then you just go south of that star, there's a huge difference. We're in the most prosperous area of farming, and just south of us, which should be a more favorable area, it is just about one of the worst agricultural areas you'll find in terms of people are really struggling. And they look at it as, why in the world would you want to grow in northern New York? We look at it as, you know what, we're really fortunate. We're in southern Quebec. So it really, a line is totally arbitrary. Wherever you are, just deal with it. You're in Wyoming right now. I'm sure there's things that you could do better than anybody in Wyoming. So just look at that. Don't look at what you can't do. Look at what you could do. Here's what we learned from our first 3 years. We knew we wanted to do it again someday. Even though it only worked for 3 years that way, I knew that this was a way I definitely wanted to go. I loved the idea of deposits up front for the birds. That was a guaranteed revenue right there. We wanted to get more local members. The goal is still to get about a mix of 50% local and 50% of people who come from about an hour away in Montreal. We knew another thing. We needed crop diversity. One of the first things when people came, they said, okay, we picked our box of apples. What else do you have? We didn't have anything else. So that diversity is really critical. And that was what helped the plan of how can we have diversity. We had a few years of wandering. We said, after 3 years, we stopped the membership, and then we sold direct. We sold at a health food store. We put up a stand. That worked okay. We made deliveries for both juice and apples. We were open for U-Pick, and that's where I realized I don't want to be open to the general public. I want to be able to target the people who come. We had people come and they'd come back with no apples. They say, you know what, some of your apples have bug damage. I said, yes, they do. You ever think of what's the cost for the environment if your fruit is all perfect? It's massive. So we realized, you know what, we want to target who comes. And in fact, now people are not afraid at all of seeing some damage on the fruit, but they are looking for fruit that they can't get anywhere else. In 2010, so this is after we replanted our permaculture orchard, and you see the trees are quite small. The first few years, we realized, wow, we want to take advantage of the light and the plastic mulch, so we put in vegetables. And we now know that you can grow vegetables and be profitable planting a permaculture orchard in the first year if you're selling vegetables. And so we had you pick veggies. So we would have one row, and our strategy we learned from Joel Salatin that if you have too much of something, you just give it away. Don't reduce your price, just give it away. So we'd have this swamped with beans, for example, and beans, you don't leave them 3 weeks and say, oh, I'll pick them in 3 weeks. When it's time to pick them, you pick them. So we had free beans, and while people were picking beans, they'd look at the next row, oh, you got cucumbers too. And so they'd buy cucumbers, and they'd buy whatever else we had, squash and so on. So giving something is always a great thing. So we started that way. And here's some of our you pick vegetables. So we're talking vegetables while the trees are there. They're just small and they're in the rows. And it produces a lot of vegetables. Last 5 years, we did a return to membership. In 2012, I was saying we had a spring frost. We had a total loss of our tree fruit, and that was a chance. That gave us the window of opportunity to start again. So the first year was so-so. People would say, why should I join? Last year I could come and pick and I didn't have to pay membership. So if you have any kind of a blip, or if you're starting with a membership is great because people don't switch the ways they've been buying from you. So we took that year as a chance to get started again. The second year, we had huge abundance. So what we did, because anytime we have too much of something and it becomes a problem, turn it into an opportunity. We had so many apples, especially apples, that we said, look, you know what? You joined as a member, we're going to give you 160 pounds of apples free for members. What that one offer, we doubled our membership. Why? Because people said, I could get a membership for $55 and get 160 pounds of apples free. People said, yeah, sure, I'll join just for those apples. And so what was a problem, how do you pick all these tons and tons of fruit now? So we turned it into an opportunity. So doubling our membership was a great outcome from that. Here's what 160 pounds looks like. Many people, in fact, we've never offered that much in one go again, because some people told us, I was just scared of coming to pick so many apples, because what in the world was I going to do with 4 boxes of apples? And I realized what to us doesn't seem like a whole lot. I mean, it was a very generous offer, but realizing that some people would look at that and go, you know what? That's work for me. Now I'm going to have to do something with it. And I also learned that people have lost the habit of sharing abundance. And that was a really sad observation. But people would say, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I said, do you have friends? Do you have family? Do you work? Take apples to work with you. Give some to your friends and family. You don't have to keep it all just because you've got that much. Just give it away. People will be glad to get fruit. But it did scare people away. So we've never offered that much fruit in one go again. Funny to think that when you get that much, it scares people away. So 2014, we had a crop loss for the trees, mainly because we had so much the year before that the trees didn't produce much in 2014. But we were full on members. We had to actually refuse members because we try to balance the number of members with the amount of produce we have available. It was the first time somebody asked for a refund, and we did. We gave it gladly, and then we simply took their name off the mailing list. We said, if somebody doesn't understand that there's ups and downs, we don't want them as a member. This year, we were again full. We had a waiting list, and having to say no to people is a nice thing. So some of the advantages of membership: one, you'll get some money before the season starts, and that is a great thing. Most people realize when the season starts, it's money out, money out, money out until the harvest starts. Well, it's nice to have money in before you even put the first thing in the ground. If you're growing vegetables, for example, we get all deposits for our meats. So our deposits, we look to cover our direct costs. So whatever our costs, we figure it out around $10 a bird. So that's the cost of the chick and the cost of the feed, and that's covered in the deposits. You can balance the number of members with your production, and that is a great thing, to be able to balance out what you sell. We use members to glean. Glean meaning if if we have too much of something, we'll offer it free and nothing gets wasted. So it's kind of like using animals, but it's using people to do something that you don't have to do. And it's a great thing. In fact, now we'll be starting to glean the fallen fruit because we get enough people coming through, and people are saying, hey, what are you doing with all these fruit on the ground? Well, we'll offer them free, the fruit on the ground to glean. If you just pick up, take the ones you want, whatever you don't want, put them in the bucket, and we'll compost them. So that's a way to do work that we would have to do. And people, it's a win-win. You got to really learn to do win-win. So our goal is a smile and a full cart. That's really what happens when people are having a good time. In fact, one of the things we're learning is that our carts are too small. A lot of times when people have gone around, they really are running out of room. They'll have bags hanging off the handles and so on. And so we need bigger carts, but that's a good problem. There's aggravating problems, and then there's really good problems, and that's a good problem. Some of the other advantages: you own the customer. I said that before. Well, own in the sense of you have their name, you have their email, you can communicate with them. You are a price maker. You're freed from harvesting, and that is a freeing thing. I love open days. We have what we call open days when members can come and harvest. And for me to just sit around, talk with people, and collect money, that's a nice comparison to the work involved with if I have to harvest everything. You can limit the number, as I said, and you can invest in educating members. For example, people often with trees say, I don't want people coming and picking in my orchard because they damage the spurs or they break branches. Well, they only do because you don't take the time to teach them how to pick, and it's not a big thing. Take some time, and it's great to take time. And we saw the last few years, we've even seen when often people come in one or two at a time. For example, a car's pulling in and another one pulls in, so you'll get 2 people or 4 people standing around ready to go. And so you say, oh, this person here, they're a longtime member. They'll show you how to pick. And then people are pleased to be able to help others to show them what's involved with picking. It is really heartwarming, and I pity anybody who sells to a wholesale situation. You don't get any of this kind of feedback. So here's a couple of Facebook posts about membership. So my wife prepares these membership cards, and that's the card they get. And people are all thrilled to get it. You know, wow, you know, this is great. I'm a member now. So that is nice to see. And you could be sure that when they post it, other people start going, what is this thing, member at a farm? The other thing is members will pass by other farms to come to you. And even there's signs out there to say, here, we're open to picking. And the people will drive by those because they're going to your place. You can sell off extra production. So if all of a sudden you have too much, we tried one year and we were expecting a certain percentage of loss, and we really lost nothing in ducks. So all of a sudden we had 50 ducks extra, and we thought, oh my goodness, 50 ducks, what are we going to do with that? So we sent off an email, not to first to our members, but they had ordered everything they wanted. And then the membership list is about, it's about 1/10 of the full list that we have for emails. So there's, let's say around 70, well, we have a lot more than that, 70 members. So it's about 1/5 of the email list is present members. So we just offer something to the whole mailing list, and those 50 ducks were gone in less than 15 minutes. I mean, it was just bing, bing, bing. The emails were just going off. And for a few days after, I was answering, sorry, they're all sold. Sorry, they're all sold. So selling off extra production like that because you have that very valuable email list. It's always easier to keep a customer than to find the new one. So if you spend a lot of time looking for new customers, that's a really hard way to run a business. So it's far easier to keep people who are existing customers happy than it is to have to replace them. We always go by Jay Abraham, is somebody I love, his marketing information, and he taught me the lifetime value of a customer. So he said, if you have, for example, a member who is a member for 10 years and buys on average $200, what is that customer really worth to you? Well, it's really worth to you $2,000 because that's their lifetime value, even if they only stay with you for 10 years. So that can change if you add on years or if they buy more per year, if you add more items. And so think of a customer not as a one-time purchase, but as a recurring stream of purchases over the years, not just that year. How to get more years and more money per year? Well, the easiest is to add that diversity. So as Whatley said, have 10 crops. Contact the people. Let them know what's going on. Make them feel special. Don't be afraid of offering them things or giving them things so that they realize that, you know what, being a member is really, you're in a select club, and you don't want to lose that spot. Diversity of crops. Well, if, for example, you're raising raspberries, don't just raise one kind of raspberries. You know, this looks far better than if the whole basket was filled with red raspberries. So diversity is really important because people will easily buy twice as much if they have a little bit of choice for diversity. And in fact, we see people just get carried away. Oftentimes they'll come to the end and they go, oh, you know what? I didn't even bring enough money. That's a good problem. Why? I take checks too. You can send it to me. You're good for that. You're a member anyway. And so that's not a problem when people run out of money or don't have a big enough cart. Having that kind of color for them, they just really eat that up, literally eat it up. Would you like some flowers with your apples? You know, you go to McDonald's or you go to any fast food place, they'll always ask you why, because they're trained to ask you if you want an add-on product with what you buy that's complementary. Oh, hey, I didn't think of getting flowers. Sure, I'll get some flowers. So right there, you can add on, just with suggestions. Add more color. You know, have color. It's important. This looks far better than just one. More than one species. If people are picking pears and then they see plums, they'll pick plums. And you know what? The first years, especially when we had when we were able to grow vegetables in the orchard, right in the orchard, people were picking cucumbers out of the honey locust trees. So you think, honey locusts don't produce cucumbers? Well, we could grow the vegetables below the trees and they would climb up in the trees. So that kind of diversity is really, really a lot of fun. So the ultimate goal is, for us, is 500 members that each one would buy $1,000. So that would give us $1 per square foot or $10 per square meter. So that's our goal. We're not there yet, but that's what we know we could reach if we just keep at it, add animals, and keep diversifying. We want our the children's children to remain members. That's really looking long term. It's not just for the people who are members, but their children's children. We've already reached the point where we have children of members who are coming back. So that's great. That's step one. Now we keep them for 20, 25 years, and their children will come back. So that really starts to be a long-term business. Email and MailChimp to communicate, vitally important. Get some way and set up so that you can communicate. These are really powerful tools. You have some incredible analytics. I can tell how many people looked at the email. I can tell how long they looked at an email. It's kind of scary when you think how much information you can get from that, but that's all available. And just use it. Every product has a story. Don't forget that. For example, our apple juice, we made deliveries, I said, with juice, and we sold apples. We would add a pamphlet to the emails explaining about our juice, how it's special, and so on. If you looked in my book, I even put the sample of the email because it's really trying to paint the whole story of a product, in our case, juice. One of the things we still use is our signature for the email is your personal farmer. You've heard of having a personal trainer. Well, people need a personal farmer. You think, well, this is my family physician. Well, we're their family's farmer. So that's an important little distinction, but it really goes a long way. Here's a few questions to help tell your story. So how do you grow your fruit? Do you spray? What do you spray? Do you fertilize? What do you fertilize with? These are things that you can write your story with. For example, we will say that we spray with whey because we'll say it's way better than anything else we could spray with. What fruit do you grow? Do you have heirloom or heirloom cultivars? Why do you grow or raise what you do? How is it picked? When is it picked? We'll say that, yes, our apples are picked ripe. For our juice, we pick them ripe. Sometimes we even lose part of a crop because we waited that extra time to get them really ripe. And people notice it in the sweetness. What are you striving for? What's the ultimate expression of what you're working towards? What are you trying to do with this operation that you're trying to create a lifestyle? That's great. Well, tell people that you want a lifestyle that is rewarding, that allows you a lot of freedom, that frees you from the cubicle, whatever it is. Tell them. Don't be afraid of giving them your story. Would you like a salad bouquet? Now, salad bouquet versus selling lettuce is a whole different picture. Remember, words paint pictures. Don't be afraid to paint a picture that people will find inspiring. How to get members? That's an often question I get. Well, I say start with your contact list. You know people, you have friends, you have family, perhaps you have social media. Start with them. Ask them if they'd like to be on an email list. Offer them something for free. Get on farm or farm customer websites. If you don't know what those are like, go check eatwild.com. We've had a listing there for years, and it generates in season. There's, I would say, at least 2 calls a week just through that one listing. Perhaps you want to put a card or a pamphlet at alternative health professionals. Joel Salatin's big on using that technique, and he says it's kind of the ones you would consider the quacks. Well, it's people who are alternative. It's not your local doctor. It's the other health professionals. Communicate. Don't be afraid of communicating 4 to 6 times per year. I'd say that would be a nice minimum. If possible, get a little video of what you're doing. You don't have to be professionally done. Get a little video explaining what you're trying to do. It really can get you some good PR. Are there any other ways? Maybe we can get a quick 30 seconds on that. Any other ways you could think of to get new members?
Nextdoor.com.
Nextdoor.com. Okay, I'll look that one up.
And that's
Any
a
others?
thing. I think they only allow you 25-mile radius. But great for local.
Which one?
That Nextdoor.com, I believe they allow a 25-mile radius. That's like a social network for local people, kind of thing. Let's see here. We got ask existing members to spread the news. Public events.
So existing members, that would be referrals. And you're right, because if some of our best members are people, we've always seen that if somebody comes twice with an existing member, they will become a member. They'll never have to come back 3 times. If they come back twice, they go, you know what, this is really good. And what happens is our existing member kind of evaluates them and says, you know what, you would like this. So those are some of the absolute best. Yes. Any others?
Blogging your farm activity.
Blogging, absolutely.
And we lost a little bit of audio with you there. It just got a little quiet.
Oh, sorry.
Anybody else got some more? What do you think about those? What about a You had the fruit stand. Is that based on merit? Is that like a merit-based system?
Yes, honor system. Yeah.
System, yeah.
Okay, let's just go on here. Here's our little video. This was one of the first videos posted about the farm. And I've really been quite surprised by the number. 238,000 views. That's been seen. That's really gone around the world and opened a lot of doors, but especially if people are looking about it. And I realize if you put in order written, photo, and video, video is the top, photo is second, and read about is third. People want to get a quick video that will explain what's going on. Second best is a photo of it, and third best is written. So really use that order of importance to get some information out. How to keep members? Well, keep in contact. I told you about the times per year, 4 to 6 at least. Back up your mailing list. Your mailing list is the most important thing you have in your business. And if you only have that at home and you have a fire, God forbid, your business is kind of tanked. Offer diversity and add value, for sure. The power of no. It's wonderful to be able to say, oh, and I had so many this year, it was great, but it's kind of, you realize this is lining up well for next year. Because if people call and you say, yes, hello, and sorry, we're full this year, but you can join the email list, and you explain to them where to go. Just go to miracle.farm, and right on the landing page, there is the sign up for getting on the mailing list. Okay, you look at it for next year, you'll get the mailing in the spring, and then you can choose if you want to be a member. Is that good? Yes. All right, bye. So in 1 minute, you can basically guarantee that the next year you will pretty well be filled up again. Offer to add them to the waiting list, or even better if they can do it themselves. So the other thing is, don't be afraid to refer them to another farm. I find when I do that, they say, you know what, I don't have beef, but here's a person I would recommend that you get beef from. That kind of referral, one, the person who gets called and says, oh, yes, I spoke to Stefan Sobkowiak from Miracle Farms, and he said to go to you. You get a lot of very good vibes from those people who you refer them to. How will people find out about you? Well, you'd have to work out your own, but this is kind of the scenario of what happens. First, people hear about you in some way. So you've got to get the word out a little bit in all those different ways. And they may have to hear about you 1 time, 2 times, even 3 times, just so that they then communicate with you somehow or look you up. So it could be automated by a website. It could be in person. Maybe they'll call you or email you. And then you want them to get onto your email list. So that would be year 1. Maybe they get the mailings in year 1. They read it, they follow it. Year 2, they do it. Year 3, and then perhaps after the 3rd year, they'll join. Sometimes that happens in a minute. They heard about you, they call you, and they join right away. Other times it takes a few years. So don't be too concerned that it's not happening all that quickly. Nothing happens all that quickly. Get over it. You know, you got to start the process, and it happens over time. Audio good? Tours, don't be afraid. If you've got something that is worthwhile to show, tours are fantastic sales tool. You give information, but it's a sales tool. Why? Because when you finish the tour, we bring people, if we have stuff in the nursery, we bring people to, well, you know, I talked about these plum trees. We have another 10 plum trees left. Bang, they're gone. I mean, it's as simple as that. They'll just empty out. If we have produce, and we do sometimes, we don't always have, but if we do, we just finish there, and it's nothing on a tour day to sell $500 worth of produce. So that's a nice way. We also use the opportunity, if people come as a couple and we have room for membership, we say, well, the tour is $30 per person. But if you're 2 of you and the membership is $60, so would you like to become a member? Because a member gets a free tour. Oh, sure, let's do that. And so you can use that as a way to get people on board. Our goal is to have a full parking lot. That's really what we're looking for on a day that we're open. Ask yourself, what business are you in? You think, well, we're in the business of growing fruit in a permaculture orchard. That's what the obvious one would seem, but it's not really that. We're in the information and education business as well. So whether it's the films, the books, tours, courses, presentations, webinar like this, they all complement the farming. I probably enjoy the education aspect more than the farming aspect because I'm not a very good farmer. A very good farmer is somebody who knows what has to be done, knows when to do it, and then does it. I've got the first two down pat. I know what needs to be done and I know when it needs to be done, but I'm not always diligent enough to do it at that time. So I do better on education than I do on farming. For example, I'll give you an ethical bribe. You send me an email to info@miracle.farm. And by the way, if some of you have farms, please take a look at getting the TLD of .farm. Why? Because instead of .com, which may be used, .farm identifies right away that you are a farm. Remember, over 90% of people trust farmers, far more than they do business people even. If you send me that, I'll send you the Q&A book free. It's more than 20 hours of answering questions. You think, well, why would I do that? Well, no big deal. Why? Because I know that if I give you the book, you're more likely to buy the film or other films that we come out with. You'll be also more interested to buy a book. I'll have your email. Maybe you'd want to buy the course or a webinar or come for a tour and so on and so on. You see, the more you trust what I would inform you with, the more I benefit, but also you'll benefit because I know I can save you thousands, literally thousands of dollars and a whole lot of years of trial and error. You think, well, yes, I'm in the you-pick farm business. Yes, but really what I'm in the business of is smiles. So I said that fun and a smile equals a full cart. That's really the business I'm in. So I really look, how can what we do, bring a smile to people. We also are looking to create inspiration. That's the kind of business we're doing. So how can we do that? What can we do? Well, we invite people at times that really are inspiring. If you've ever walked in an orchard when it's in bloom, it's really quite an experience, especially if there's honey locust in bloom, because it's not just the view, it's the smell. We're in the health business. Yes, people who are looking to be healthy, they are looking for our kind of food. We're in the business of creating memories. So when people come and they remember and they bring their kids and the kids remember, that's an important part of the business. We aim for abundance. So that's why we want to limit the number of members. We don't want people to come and there's nothing on the trees. We had that this year and it's not a great thing. Well, people come and we say, look, I'm sorry, everything's been picked out. There is some fruit below the trees, and we did that for plums, and people were glad because they said, well, I just want to make jam. Well, if you want to make jam, the fruit under the trees. And so we were able to sell the drops at full price because people realize that, these are just as good as the ones off the tree. In fact, they're better because they only fall if they're really ripe. So that's the kind of abundance we're looking for. People don't buy a product, they buy an outcome. Just remember that. That's the real basis of any marketing. First impressions matter. This was our little welcome center, and it was okay, but it was looking really tired. So a little facelift is important, and so we are gradually looking at the visual and the aesthetic of the whole farm, gradually moving from front to back as people see what's their first impression and what's the appearance. So that is important. The look is important. You're going to have flowers in the rows. Even if you grow vegetables, are you going to put flowers at the beginning of your vegetable rows? Those are the little touches that make a difference. Do your aisles look like shh? Well, if they do, people don't want to walk on that. And this is our orchard at times when we're running the birds. But we're careful to put that at times when people aren't coming to pick in those rows. So yes, after 2 weeks, that is a lush green grass. if our aisles are looking like this, yeah, we missed up on the choices or the pruning. So that's not what we really want. Neither this. If we haven't mowed in 6 weeks and there's really not access to it, it's like walking in a hayfield. That's not what we're after either. We do want access, and we have in the film, I explain it even more, our pattern of alternating the mowing to benefit people and the wildlife and the beneficials and so on. Have to love free publicity. It's really the fastest way to go. People want to brag about their purchases. Hey, I went to that place and you should see it. Yeah, well, it helped that a lot of people have seen about the farm. That's free publicity. YouTube is free publicity. Any of the social media, it's free publicity. Don't neglect your local paper. That's a really good one. We had 3 articles came out in our local paper, and it was great. People all of a sudden were starting to call and say, yeah, I thought it was abandoned, or I didn't see much going on, but I see that it's interesting. So we've had quite a good effect. And what happens, it is really a snowball effect. You get one thing happen, one article, whether it's in the paper or whether it's a piece on TV or whatever, and it's a snowball. Oh, another media saw it and they pick it up, and then another one. So you want to keep that snowball rolling as long as you can.
Hey, Stefan, the sound is, I don't know if it's something hitting the microphone or what.
Is that better?
There we go. That sounds better.
Is that good?
It's a little quiet.
You hear now?
It's still a little quiet.
Oh, let me. Better?
No? I don't know. How's that sound, guys?
Is that better? You getting it this way?
It's still quiet. It's like something got hit. Maybe a cable got hit or something.
Let me try it again. Now?
Still sounds quiet.
Sounds quiet.
Something was brushed by clothing, maybe. It's kind of what it sounded like.
Now? Better?
Yeah, that sounds a little better.
All right, I'll try and finish it off like that.
All right.
Television is definitely the media to get. I'm amazed at how many people still watch TV, but really they do. That was a tough nut for us to crack, and the way we got it is we just asked Facebook friends. There was a show we really wanted to get on. It's the oldest running farming show in Canada, and we wanted to get on that. And so I tried 3 times. I communicated with them, and nothing happened. Finally, I said to the Facebook friends, I said, hey, if you think what we're doing is worth seeing, how about here's the contact, give them a call or send them an email. And 3 weeks later, they called me to say, we've had a lot of comments from people saying we should get you on, so let's schedule it. And that was a real coup. That worked great to give us a lot of exposure. So just to summarize, we looked at different ways to sell. Take a look at what Booker T. Whatley had to say. We saw our experience with membership and the advantages and how every product has a story. How to keep, get, and refuse members. We looked at what business am I in and how to get some PR. I guess, and I really do suggest if some of you haven't seen the film, that's the film, The Permaculture Orchard, Beyond Organic. It's really worth it if you want to set up an orchard that can really, can't say enough about it. It's a really nice system, a lot easier. This year we tested how little work it can be, and it's amazing once it's set up. We were able to do everything we needed to maintain the orchard in 50 days. So it seems like a lot, but for almost 5 acres of orchard, it's really not a lot of work compared to what we used to do. Any questions?
All right. Excellent, Stefan.